Trump's travails, more legal hammers will drop. Defeated former President Donald Trump, already indicted in New York for falsification of business records, soon will likely face state criminal charges in Georgia regarding the phony-elector scheme and his attempt to compel state officials to find just enough votes to re-elect him. Perhaps even sooner, he should expect federal charges based on his willful retention of highly sensitive national security documents and obstruction of justice. And sooner or later, he will almost certainly be charged in connection with the January 6, 2021, insurrection. If Oath Keepers leader Stewart Rhodes got 18 years, it's hard to let the guy who summoned his supporters to the National Mall get off the hook. That leaves two questions: how much trouble is Trump really in? Would the GOP really nominate someone facing multiple indictments? Trump's troubles, media reports suggest Special Counsel Jack Smith is weeks if not days away from indicting Trump for serious felonies relating to the Mar-a-Lago documents case, thanks to Trump's own public admissions and an extraordinary number of his own attorneys now cooperating with the Justice Department. At his recent CNN town hall, Trump bragged, "I was there, and I took what I took and it gets declassified." That confirms that he willfully took documents he knew to be classified. That he wrongly imagined he could magically declassify them after leaving office does not exonerate him. His assertion that he had the absolute right to take them goes to both his intent and his motive in withholding them. Mine. Unless anyone should doubt his intent, he insisted, when we left Washington, we had the boxes lined up on the sidewalk outside for everybody. People are taking pictures of them. Everybody knew we were taking those boxes. In addition to those admissions, The Guardian reported this week that Trump lawyer Evan Corcoran was told to search the storage room because that was where all the materials that had been brought from the White House at the end of Trump's presidency ended up being deposited. But he was waved off after he asked if he should search elsewhere. Corcoran never searched Trump's office and told prosecutors the 38 papers were the extent of the material at Mar-a-Lago. The FBI later found more than 100 classified documents, many in Trump's office. Trump's team denies the allegations, but the direct evidence that Trump willfully deceived investigators has piled up. Furthermore, Trump aides moved boxes days before the FBI visited him to collect subpoenaed documents, according to the Post's reporting, and even staged a dress rehearsal for moving documents. If you throw in reports that Trump liked to show off the documents to visitors, Smith appears to have substantial evidence of Trump's willfulness in violating the Espionage Act and of a separate obstruction charge, an aggravating factor that makes indictment more likely. The account Smith has pieced together bears no comparison to President Biden's, former Vice President Mike Pence's and other politicians' innocent retention of a few stray documents. Trump faces an imminent and compelling federal indictment for serious crimes. Republican denial. Like many of you, I find it hard to wrap my head around the notion that MAGA primary voters are so sheltered from reality by the right-wing media propaganda machine that they would vote for a man accused of trying to overthrow the government and who got civilly adjudicated as a liar and sexual assaulter in the E. Jean Carroll case. Well, if they stuck with him after January 6, 2021, I suppose the slew of indictments that follow aren't likely to matter to them. Even if he racked up more indictments, these would simply be proof of elites' vendetta against Trump. Sadly, millions will vote for him even if they acknowledge that he violated the Constitution and betrayed his office. For them, I'm in it for the tax cuts but the Great Replacement provides sufficient justification for electing a dangerous, vengeful and utterly unfit candidate. Others afflicted with right-wing media-induced delusion will go to their graves convinced Trump is a victim. Democracy remains at risk when tens of millions of people willfully abet an unhinged authoritarian's return to power. Trump's travails, more legal hammers will drop. Defeated former President Donald Trump, already indicted in New York for falsification of business records, soon will likely face state criminal charges in Georgia regarding the phony-elector scheme and his attempt to compel state officials to find just enough votes to re-elect him. Perhaps even sooner, he should expect federal charges based on his willful retention of highly sensitive national security documents and Erdogan won Turkey's election. But this is not the end of the story. This past weekend, Turkey's voters rejected liberal democracy in favor of populism. Sunday's runoff in the country's presidential elections yielded a clear win for Recep Tayyip Erdogan. 52% of Turkey's voters said they approved of President Erdogan's pledge to make Turkey great again. Despite obvious economic mismanagement, they believed Erdogan would steer Turkey toward a path of imperial grandeur. Erdogan used all the advantages of being an incumbent, state resources, media control, favorable election laws, to beat up on his opponent. His rival, 74-year-old Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, is a former civil servant who emerged as the lead candidate after a more popular opponent, Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, was subjected to a sham trial in January 2022 and disqualified from running. During the campaign, possibly Turkey's most divisive, Kılıçdaroğlu was targeted for his Alevi identity, accused by Erdogan of being pro-LGBTQ and of being supported by terrorists. In campaign rallies, Erdogan showed fake videos that depict Kurdish separatist PKK leaders singing the opposition's campaign song. So what if it is a fake? Erdogan said. Fareed Zakaria, Turkey points to a global trend, free and unfair elections. Turkey's geopolitical orientation was also on the ballot. Erdogan said President Biden was supporting his rivals, while the opposition complained of Russian interference, with Kılıçdaroğlu going so far as to tweet in Russian warning Moscow to stay out of the race. Erdogan had been increasingly drifting from the transatlantic orbit and developing closer ties with Russia. To stave off Turkey's economic problems, he managed to secure financial backing from Russia, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and Qatar in the form of central bank loans, which allowed him to provide handouts and wage increases in the run-up to elections. It was therefore a win not just for the Turkish leader but also for the global club of autocracies. This is not the end of the story for Turkey, however. Erdogan might be in power for another 5 years, and those 5 years will almost certainly further hollow out institutions and entrench authoritarian political habits in the country's psyche. But the election was closely fought, even if it was not free and fair. While Erdogan might well see the results as an approval for his domestic policies and his non-aligned geopolitical course, he should not get overconfident. The country is deeply polarized, and though a slim majority was swayed by his populist message, an economic reckoning looms. Turkey's central bank reserves are once again in the negative territory. Economists are worried about currency devaluation or capital controls to prevent a financial panic over the next few months. Turkey will break your heart, an exiled Turkish journalist warned me more than 2 decades ago. It has, over and over again. Sunday, it happened one more time. And yet 25 million Turkish citizens across the nation had the courage to vote for Kılıçdaroğlu's opposition platform, despite incessant state propaganda, sectarian provocations and election day irregularities.